Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to do a deep exploration of clarity, specifically the standard known as Simplified Technical English, or STE. Now, if you're responsible for content, for technical docs, or even engineering risk, you've probably run into this idea before.
And if you have, I bet you've heard about the dictionary, that controlled list of words.
The parts, exactly. But the core principle for our deep dive today is this foundational idea from philosophy. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. A limited stack of approved words, and for STE, that's what, around 900?
Famously, yes, around 900 approved words.
Right, that stack is just a commodity. It's just words.
Yeah.
So our mission is to show you why mistaking those words for the entirety of the standard is a huge strategic fallacy, and why investing in the whole thing, the linguistic methodology, is just a necessity for managing risk and for business success.
This is a really critical distinction. We're not just, talking about grammar rules here. We're talking about achieving unambiguous semantic order. When companies rely on complex, natural English, they're just introducing friction, high costs, and, well, dangerous ambiguity. The whole purpose of the ASDE 100 standard is to make that content rigorously correct. That's the strategic advantage.
So let's unpack the history of how we even got here. Because this didn't come out of some academic ivory tower, did it? It came right from the flight line. It came because technical texts were failing at their most basic job.
That's absolutely right. The starting gun really fired back in the late 1970s. You had the Association of European Airlines, the AEA, so the people actually operating the planes, they noticed a really dangerous trend.
What was that?
The maintenance documentation in civil aviation was just confusing. It was difficult for the crews to understand.
And the problem was immediate. English is the required international language of aerospace, but most of the technicians reading these manuals are non-native English speakers. They often have, limited fluency.
Precisely. So the AEA went to the European Association of Aerospace Industries, AECMA, and asked them to investigate the readability issue. And they didn't do it alone. They worked with the Aerospace Industries Association of America, the AIA.
So it was an international effort from day one.
From day one. It was focused specifically on procedural maintenance texts.
They were trying to solve the problem that's just inherent in standard English, right?
Sure.
All the synonyms, the tiny difference between begin and commence, or the multiple meanings for a single word, and these complex sentences that native speakers just take for granted.
And that research led to the very first AACMA Simplified English Guide in 1986. That was really the seed. It grew into what we now know as the ASDE 100 specification. And the standard has been revised constantly since then. It's gone from issue 5 in 2010 all the way to issue 9, which we're expecting in 2025. This constant refinement, it just proves that it's a living methodology. It's always adapting based on what users are telling them.
So we can define STE as an international specification that has two parts: the set of writing rules and that controlled dictionary. The dictionary is aiming for that ideal state: one word, one meaning. And the words are picked specifically for, simplicity and global recognition.
Exactly. Simplicity and ease of recognition.
Okay, and this is where managers so often make their biggest strategic mistake. They see that 900-word list and think, great, we just need software to check for those words.
Yeah.
So they invest in tools that only check the parts.
And that view just treats the dictionary like a commodity. It completely overlooks the rigorous constraints the standard actually imposes. Yes, the dictionary picks simple words like choosing start and getting rid of begin, commence, originate. But it also controls the meaning of those approved words.
Can you give us an example of how it controls meaning even within a single word?
Sure. Take the approved word fall. In common English, it can mean to drop, but it can also mean to decrease, profits fell. In STE, the dictionary strictly limits fall to one meaning: to move down by the force of gravity.
So if you need to say something decreased,
You have to use an approved alternative, like go down. It just eliminates that potential for ambiguity from the very beginning.
But the real danger isn't just in the definition, it's in the context. And that's where a parts-based tool just completely fails.
Exactly. This is the Gestalt failure in action. The tools, they'll check if a word's approved, but they don't apply the crucial context that the writing rules demand. Look at Writing Rule 1.2. It says, use approved words from the dictionary only as the part of speech given.
How does that actually play out in a real sentence?
The word close is a perfect example. The dictionary approves it as a verb, close the door.
Yeah.
But it specifically forbids using it as an adverb or an adjective.
Okay.
So if a writer puts in, do not go close to the test rig, A simple vocabulary checker might flag close as an approved word, but that whole sentence is non-compliant because close is being used as an adverb. The rule demands the compliant STE sentence. Do not go near the test rig during the test.
So the parts were approved, but the whole sentence structure, which is governed by the rule, was a failure.
A total failure.
So relying on a simple vocab tool, this just gives you a false sense of security. It says the ingredients are okay, but it completely ignores the recipe. That level of linguistic policing must create a lot of friction for writers who've been doing this for a long time. How do you get over the habit of just using natural, varied English?
You overcome it through mandatory structural change. And that brings us to another key rule, the verb focus. STE forces you to use constructions where an approved verb shows the action. It prioritizes the process over the noun.
That is a huge paradigm shift. It forces the writer to think process first, not component first or state first. Is that the secret sauce to cutting down on misinterpretation?
It is. So instead of a non-STE phrase like, the meter gives an indication of 450 ohms.
Which is pretty common.
Very common. The STE version mandates, the ohmmeter shows 450 ohms. And you see this pattern all through the dictionary. The non-approved noun annotation have to become the approved verb write. The noun attachment has to become the approved verb attach. The whole methodology forces action. It reduces abstract nouns and, well, that increases clarity.
So the writing rules are the strategic architecture. They turn a limited vocabulary into a language system that is globally unambiguous. Beyond parts of speech, let's look at the fundamental structural rules that really shape the language.
Well, one of the most common issues in, let's say, sloppy technical writing is omitting words, especially verbs. You rely on implied context. In technical procedures, that kind of ambiguity is just unacceptable. Rule 4.2 forbids it.
Right, and you see that omission all the time in notes or checklists or procedural steps. You'll just see something like rotary switch to input to.
But that's ambiguous. Is the reader supposed to wait for the switch to move, or are they supposed to do something? STE requires the verb to be there. Set the rotary switch to NPOPT. We also see rules that forbid contractions like don't. You have to use the full do not.
Why is that?
Because contractions, while they're natural for native speakers, they can be harder for an international reader to process quickly, especially in a critical procedure.
And the methodology, it doesn't just stop at the sentence level, does it? It mandates structure all the way up to the paragraph. That's what really creates the validation framework.
Absolutely. Rule 6.4 says each paragraph must address only one topic. And critically, Rule 6.5 requires you to start every single paragraph with a topic sentence.
That seems incredibly strict, but I can see how the benefit for the reader would be enormous. If you only read the topic sentences, you can get the broad outline of the entire document instantly. It's like a built-in table of contents. But does that requirement ever lead to, repetitive or awkward paragraph starts?
It might feel awkward to a creative writer, sure. But for technical communication, the value just outweighs any stylistic concern. This rigidity is the key to quality and validation. When the linguistic structure is this logical, technical communication becomes binary. It's either true or it's false, correct or wrong. There's no room for subjectivity, no room for an expert to say, yeah, that looks about right. The rules eliminate that ambiguity.
I also noticed the rule about consistency in technical names. You can't just swap terms, even if they're perfect synonyms in everyday language.
That's Rule 1.12. Once you pick a specific technical noun for a component, let's say actuator, you have to use that term consistently, always. You're forbidden from calling it the servo control unit or control unit later just for variety. Standard writing encourages synonyms to keep things interesting. Technical writing in STE demands precision to make sure the reader always knows exactly what part you're talking about.
Okay, let's connect all this methodological rigor back to the business case. This isn't just about good writing, it's about reducing liability. How does this strategy translate to actual ROI?
The most immediate and critical area is human factor risk and safety. STE forces writers to assess and classify risk without any ambiguity. So if you have an interaction, like mixing oxygen with grease, which creates an explosive mixture, the writer is mandated to classify that instruction as a warning. And not just that, the warning must explicitly state the consequence. An explosion can cause injury or death.
You contrast that with a vague, standard English warning that might just say, extreme cleanliness of oxygen tubes is imperative. The difference is literally life and death.
It forces accountability. And beyond safety, the financial case is huge. Because the source content is so clean and unambiguous and structurally consistent, you eliminate a lot of expensive and time-consuming post-editing after translation. I mean, studies consistently show that creating this high-quality, controlled source content leads to massive savings, often in the range of, what, 30 to 40% reduction in translation and localization costs?
That efficiency gain alone is often enough to justify investing in training. But for organizations that are modernizing their information architecture, especially with AI on the rise, what's the ultimate strategic value here?
This is probably the single most important takeaway for technical managers and for architects. AI systems, machine learning models, advanced publications, workflows, they all rely on clean, structured data. Sloppy, ambiguous, natural English is basically toxic to these systems. When your content is written using the rigorous rules of STE, you're essentially creating truly machine-readable data.
So it's structured data that's just disguised as text.
Exactly. When you have a rule that says use only one topic per paragraph or always state the verb, you're giving an algorithm these reliable, predictable hooks. Hooks for information extraction, for data validation, even for training your own internal large language models.
So the dictionary, the parts, that's accessible to anyone. It's a commodity.
Right. But the knowledge of how to apply Rule 1.2 on parts of speech or Rule 6.5 on topic sentences, and the rigor it takes to maintain that total consistency, that is the system. The complete framework. That is the strategic imperative that protects your bottom line, enables your future AI systems, and most importantly, it safeguards your people. So the power of ASD/STE 100, it doesn't reside in the vocabulary alone. Its strategic value is entirely in the rigorous writing rules that govern how those words interact to ensure clarity, accuracy, and compliance.
And for those of you who are currently adopting or implementing this standard, just remember that it is a living document. The specification is actively maintained by the ASD Simplified Technical English Maintenance Group, or STEM, and they rely on user feedback through change forms to constantly improve the standard, making sure it stays relevant with new issues like Issue 9.
Now, a final thought for you to consider. We've established that the ultimate value of controlled language is eliminating ambiguity, especially in life or death scenarios. The ASD/STE 100 dictionary contains approved words like kill and dangerous. Given those extreme definitions, how essential is the human expertise in correctly applying all the writing rules, the whole, to ensure that the technical content down to the last word accurately and safely reflects that life or death scenario? If your organization only invests in the dictionary, are you truly protecting your team from the highest level of risk?